Hello, everyone, and welcome to the 14th episode of the Rangers Gameplan podcast, where we discuss the first two games that were the New York Rangers. And by God, were the first two games the New York Rangers, were they not?
Yeah, a couple days ago we were winning the Stanley Cup, and now all of a sudden we're not making the playoffs. So I'm ready to overreact. I don't know about you.
I'm so
Um,
excited.
Tonight definitely was not fun. I will say it definitely felt a lot worse than it probably was.
Yeah.
In a vacuum, this was, really, really bad. But at the end of the day, they'll be fine. They will be fine. Um, I guess there is a lot to talk about. I
Do we
don't know
want
if you want to start with the good or the bad. I don't know.
do we want us to discuss game one first, and then ease our way into this nightmare?
Yeah, so game one, I have no notes. The only goal they gave up was just an unlucky bounce that went straight to JJ Paterka, and there's literally nothing we could do about that. Outside of that, they didn't make me sweat the entire first game. So I guess the positives are, let me just start off by saying everything that happened with the lines and the system was something that we didn't see all of last year or the year before, for that matter. So that is definitely a positive. And I guess a part of that does carry over into this game, where the lines are not being jumbled for no reason.
Yeah.
That's pretty cool. It even, I will say, for the past couple of years, I'm almost conditioned to watching this team panic when games like tonight happen. That they definitely never did that. It never felt like a complete disaster. So that's definitely progress. It was, the first game obviously was delightful to watch. Tonight, not so much, but nothing was ever going to be perfect. I guess the positive that I take out of this is just that, tonight didn't feel like they were just chickens with their heads cut off,
Mm-hmm.
which I feel like every loss last year and the year before felt that way. So,
I will definitely say for game one, I thought that was just as close to like a perfect way to wash the taste out of last season out as possible. Because you had the second line with Hedel and Loff and Panarin looking fantastic, and they look good again tonight, I will definitely say. The defense looked like they gave a shit, which is something you just maybe could find a couple of times in the past two seasons with Gallant. I thought that looked a lot better. And you go into tonight, I can honestly say they tried. I
yeah,
There were a lot
yeah,
of losses last year against inferior opponents where you're just like, wow, you just didn't care
yeah.
to
They
attempt to
just
win.
didn't show up. Yeah,
Like
yeah,
they tried tonight. They looked like they would like to have won the game.
yeah.
They
They
just got
definitely
goalied
got.
into the ground.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that they definitely got goalied quite a bit, and I mean, I guess we should definitely start off by mentioning, they had two disallowed goals in this game.
Mm.
I can't imagine how many times this season that will end up happening. Two in one game is definitely pretty crazy. Um, obviously, I'm not going to argue that both of them definitely were offsides. The one thing I will say is a little bit sketchy to me is the one that was disallowed for Kreider being offsides. I don't know how they overturned that. Maybe obviously they had an angle that showed it clearly, but the puck was riding up on the glass, so I don't know how they perfectly got an angle of Kreider being over the blue line before the puck. Just based on that. If it was on the ice or going along the boards, I would see how they caught it. But being that they called it a goal on the ice, I don't know how they disallowed it. Other than
Yeah.
that, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and argue it too much. I just definitely thought that was a little bit weird because when I was watching it, I couldn't see the puck, and I
Yeah.
just don't know how they got conclusive enough evidence to overturn it if it was riding up on the glass. That's it. Listen. I'm not going to sit here and act like the Rangers necessarily completely deserve to win that game. I'm not going to sit here and cry about the refs. That's just something I definitely wanted to bring up. Maybe there is an angle that they saw that we didn't. I understand that, but I just thought that was very weird, especially
Yeah.
because it wasn't a very long review. So
No.
I don't know how they saw it, but it is what it is.
Both two goals coming back in the first period is just it was such a vibe killer because they looked good to that point.
Yeah,
And it
yeah.
just, I mean, if you get 2 goals taken back in a week from a review, that's not the most common thing. In a game is really strange. In the first period of a game
Yeah.
is just
Yeah.
insanity.
Yeah, I will definitely agree. It killed the vibe majorly. I wasn't really sweating the game beforehand or in that first period until that point, and then after both of them were disallowed, you just kind of saw them look pretty dead. Which I
Yeah.
can't say I blame them too much, especially early on in the season. The one thing I will say is obviously Ryan Lindgren did not play tonight.
Ah!
And I don't know how many times we have to say this. Like, he needs to be given whatever he wants in terms of contract because he is the glue to the team, and that has been proven over and over and over again. So, I mean, I guess the one thing I will say is I don't think it's going to be long term. They said he pretty much felt fine. I just think they were playing a team they felt like they were better than, and they didn't want to push him, which I agree with, and obviously it didn't work out. But regardless, I would much rather, rest him when possible, just because of his play style. He's not one of the. His entire play style is just putting himself in danger the entire game. So if he's not feeling 100%, you're pretty much just risking it becoming a long-term thing. So whenever you possibly can, if he's not 100%, just sit him. And I feel like we didn't do that too much the past, since he's been a Ranger.
Yeah.
And he's the one player you kind of can't do that with because if he's, sore or, he took a puck to the hand or something, he's going to, keep blocking shots and hitting everyone possible. So the risk percentage of him actually seriously or hurting himself is way higher than like anybody else in the league. So
Dude, the second I heard he was out, I'm like, oh god, this is gonna be a defensive lapse of a game. And
yeah.
hey, look.
Yeah, I mean, listen. The first game, I mean, Sam and Joe kept saying it on the broadcast. Like, I think on the official box score, Buffalo had 2 scoring chances, 2 the whole game. So they played phenomenal. I don't know what it is tonight, but obviously, just from watching the game, it was way more than 2. And we'll just keep saying it. Like, Ryan Lindgren is just 100% the glue to this team. Obviously, that is also Igor, but in terms of just just structurally, you need Ryan Lindgren in the lineup. You just absolutely need it. I feel like it handcuffs Adam Fox quite a bit every time he's not playing with them, and I mean it just puts guys in positions they're not necessarily comfortable in. And that's really it. Obviously, it's game 2. I'm sure Lindgren will be good to go Monday night, or at least I'd hope so. But just based on what they were saying, if he was feeling fine and it sounded like they were just trying to not risk anything, then I'm cool with that. Obviously, it didn't work out. They lost the game. I know that. But I regardless of all that, he is a very important player on this team. And I feel like they have pushed him through injuries quite a bit in his career so far, and I'd rather that not happen.
He is certainly a player. You can't run the risk of him having to be out for a month because we saw what happens when that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like, Nico Mikkola is not a terrible defenseman, and we talked about him at length last podcast. Like, but anyone who isn't Ryan Lindgren paired with Adam Fox, it just doesn't work. And
yeah.
It's going to be hilarious in the offseason. Is his contract up this offseason, or is it next season?
I believe it's this offseason. I'm pretty confident.
He's going to get, $5 million a year. And
yeah.
People are going to look at him and be like, really? He got 5? I'm like, no, yes. I would have given him more.
Yeah.
There are a lot of players.
100%.
There are a lot of players on this team that I'm like, oh yeah, you can't let that person slip away. I feel that way about Keandre Miller. I felt that way about Adam Fox before they got him long term. Obviously, you will always feel that way about a guy like Igor Shesterkin. You can't let Ryan Lindgren leave under no circumstance.
Yeah, so this is his last year. Just
Oh.
before we say anything else, this is his last year.
Mm.
So I'm confident they'll bring him back, but I just
Stake in
honestly,
ownership if you have
yeah,
to.
I'm willing to give him whatever he wants, just absolutely whatever he wants. So, I mean, and talking about Adam Fox, we've said this many times, but I mean, a lot of people will knock him specifically for not playing the best when Lindgren is out. And by the way, tonight is not one of those games. I thought Adam Fox was great tonight, but it's I like I said, we've said it a million times. They have played together since I believe they were 15 or 16, maybe even younger than that. So I don't care how good of a player you are when you are that, you know, intertwined with one specific teammate, or I guess in this specific case, it's a literal D pairing partner he's had for like 7-8 years now. I'm not gonna knock him for that.
No.
It's definitely very. He probably feels so out of place and off when Lindgren is not there because they are just so they work so well together. They played together in junior for very long, and I think the only time they didn't play together is when Lindgren was in Boston or in their organization. I think like for half a season of hockey, they were not together. That's
Mm.
it. So they definitely need to be kept together. The other thing I will say about that is obviously Boone Jenner had a hat trick tonight, and I mean, you would like to think that Lindgren would be the guy battling with him in front, and you would also like to think Lindgren would do a much better job than Zach Jones at that. So I'm not necessarily, obviously you don't really want Boone Jenner scoring a hat trick on you, but I mean, you're just seeing him, bully Zach Jones all game. And there's really not a whole lot you could do about
I
that.
gotta level with you.
Yeah.
By the third goal, I was kind of just getting amusement out of it. There was that small part of me. I'm just like, man, he really is just.
Yeah. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm pretty sure the last time we were on here, I did say that I didn't think the Blue Jackets were as bad as advertised this year, and I definitely still think that because of what we saw tonight. Like, obviously the Rangers didn't play the best game, I'm not in any way saying that the Blue Jackets are, even a top half of the league team. But I just think in situations like that where you kind of have a weird game and you get a couple disallowed goals, they're a good enough team where they could take advantage of things like that. I mean, tonight definitely was not fun. It definitely felt like it was over probably halfway through the second. But I will give them a lot of credit. I didn't think there were too many just terrible defensive plays by the Rangers. I just think the Blue Jackets do definitely have playmakers. I said that randomly on the last episode because we were just bored and didn't know what to talk about, so I just decided to talk about the Blue Jackets. But they definitely have some good players. So I mean, they played horrible game one. I think they, definitely came out with something to prove tonight, and the Rangers just didn't have it. And I'm definitely willing to sweep this one under the rug. I guess a couple things I will say. I'm not the biggest fan of Blake Wheeler so far.
Yeah.
Obviously, we have played 2 games. But I kind of... I just see him as the only player on the team so far that I've visibly noticed as like a weak spot. I just think he looks very old.
Yeah.
I know one of the biggest chirps on the Rangers, especially last year, is that we love trading for these older guys, and people were calling Tarasenko and Kane, grandpas. I think Blake Wheeler is the only guy that you could justify saying that about. Like I said, I know we played 2 games, but there's just a lot of times where he has the puck, and it just seems like he just does not have the legs at all. Now, with that being said, in game 1, I did think that third line was very good. Cooley, who had his first NHL goal tonight, which was beautiful to see. At least we left Columbus with something to actually be happy about. But, I mean, Trocheck, Cooley, and Wheeler, I did think was very good in game 1. So, obviously tonight, I really that's more so where I saw it, where it just every time Blake Wheeler had the puck, I think he just it literally looked like he just was almost injured or something. I don't know what was going on, but he just couldn't get past guys. And I'm not asking him to be Connor McDavid with the puck. I'm just saying that he literally was not able to outskate anybody tonight. So I don't know what that was. And I believe he got benched in the third period.
Yeah.
I think they were saying that on the broadcast. Now, here's the one thing I will say about that. I don't know if that's necessarily a disciplinary thing or if they were just trying to shorten the bench because obviously you went in down by 3 goals. So I don't know if you're necessarily trying to play Blake Wheeler when you're trying to make that big of a comeback. So I guess we'll find out. I didn't really, we're by the way, we're recording this like right after the game ended, basically. So not all of the stuff of the post game has come out.
Yeah, I haven't.
I don't know what Laviolette said about that. I'm sure he was asked about it. But it's obviously one of two things. I don't know if it was disciplinary or if it was just, you're basically just rolling with all skill guys at that point. Either way, I'm not upset about it because if it's game 2, let's say if we were like 3 weeks into the season and this is like the 3rd or 4th time that this has happened to Blake Wheeler, then it's a different story. But I guess right now it just doesn't matter too much.
Like, he's definitely looked like one of the weaker links. I don't think it was like a disciplinary thing. He's looked not good, but he hasn't looked that cripplingly bad that 2 games in you're saying hit the bench to a veteran of the league.
Yeah.
I have to imagine if you're rolling with skill guys, and the third line in game 1 looked solid. They looked good. Wild sentence to say, thank God Will Cooley is carrying that line instead of Blake Wheeler, but here we are.
Yeah.
What a world that we live in. Side note on that same thing. Eric Gustafson's going to unironically be the best off-season addition, and I just need people to understand that. I knew he was going to be solid, but I've definitely been pretty impressed by him for sure. I know the goal tonight was fluky. I know it got deflected and everything. I just think it's very cool that we have a 7th defenseman that can actually genuinely contribute something on both ends of the ice. It's really nice. It's nice to not have a handicap as your second or 7th defenseman. That's definitely pretty nice to have on the team. With Blake Wheeler, I do think he will still be a solid player on the team. By the way, he's making $800K, so I don't really care. I'm not going to sit here and just talk about free. Blake Wheeler for. Yeah, so I mean, if he could even score 30 points, it's worth the investment. So I'm confident he will do that. And the other thing, I mean, it is what it is. I think the Blue Jackets probably just had a little bit more to play for tonight. With that being said, there was definitely a lot of things in the game that I didn't like, very much. I just think they weren't as tough in the neutral zone as the first game, and I know Lindgren is definitely a big part in that, but regardless, it's just I don't want this to be super inconsistent because I mean, the one other thing I will say is I was quietly expecting them to almost struggle for a little bit, at least in the first game, just because they're learning a new system. Yeah,
they definitely played perfectly within the system in game 1. And by the way, I do think the Sabres will be a playoff team this year. They dropped to 0-2 tonight, so I don't know, but they do have some legit talent offensively on that team, and they couldn't get anything going whatsoever. So that's definitely a bright spot. I know it was one game, but that is the first time in 2 years that the New York Rangers have played with a structure. So I know tonight wasn't fun, but I'm just very happy that we have a coach that is actually earning a paycheck. I mean, I know they're 1-1. It's not like they're 10-0 right now, but it's just cool that a system was put in place. That's very nice to have.
Jesus Christ, the bar is so low.
It's no longer just skate until you get a power play and score. That's not the case anymore. It's a legitimate structure and system that they're playing under. It's awesome.
That is another thing I will definitely say is in game 1, they looked good defensively. And this game, they didn't look great, by any means, but they are learning that new system. And I'm not going to just immediately say, okay, DEFCON 5, it's time to burn it to the ground. They gotta learn new things. Tonight, you had to be jumbled up with Lingrid being out, and so I understand that. It's definitely not worst case scenario. I want to wait 10 games or so before I get too negative and or positive about it. And again, there weren't a ton of mistakes, but the mistakes they made were really bad, and Columbus pounced on them very well. It was incredibly costly mistakes. Because I know that you're going to be very excited when I talk about this. I have pulled up Money Puck. In case you were wondering about the deserve to win.
I have not seen this yet. I have not seen it, so I'm interested.
Are you prepared for the deserve to win meter?
I'm very eager to see the numbers on this.
So it was 59.3% in favor of the Rangers.
Yeah, that definitely sounds about right. That definitely sounds about right.
And you can even remove Kreider's free goal at the very end, because even before that, it was heavily in favor of the Rangers. Expected goals finished at 4.7 to 3.03. And the last goal added about one expected goal, but even at that, you're beating them by 0.7 expected goals. I sound like such a I've never touched grass nerd in my life as I say this. I don't care. They outplayed Columbus for a lot of this game. I mean, shots were 42 to 21.
Yeah. So we said it at the beginning. They definitely got goal lead. There was quite a few opportunities where just an outstanding save was made. So those games are going to happen, And the other thing, I mean, it's early enough in the season where, teams are just gonna they're just gonna win games against teams that they're worse than at this point. I mean, the Red Wings, they lost to the Devils and they had an offensive outburst against Tampa tonight. It's just going to happen. I'm definitely seeing quite a bit of overreacting from Rangers fans on Twitter, which I'm not surprised by. I've been a fan of this team for my whole life.
All the hits.
Yeah, I mean, it's just I'm seeing a lot of things be said. Specifically about guys like Trocheck and stuff like that. Listen, guys, nobody's getting traded. Nothing. Just watch the game. I fully expect them to win on Monday. Hopefully they do.
That'll be a fun video if they don't.
Yeah. I mean, now that's another thing. The Coyotes. Listen, the Rangers should win that game. It's the home opener. I'm not gonna make excuses if they don't. But if they so happen to lose that game, it has to at least be close in overtime or a shootout or something, because the Devils just lost to them. So listen, I expect to win the game, but I'm not gonna. If they do lose, I'm not gonna sit here and act like the sky is falling, like I know that most of our lovely fan base will do. So it's very early. This is going into Game 3. The one thing that I do want to talk about is obviously we have talked ad nauseum about number 13 and number 24 on this team. And Laugh had a game that I did not think he was capable of in Game 1.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not like he had 6 points or anything, but he played awesome. He wasn't bad tonight, but he didn't do as much. I'm just hoping that he can just please keep this going. He is on a line with a guy that has scored 90-plus points the past 3 years, and he probably would have scored over 100 in 2020 or 2019 before COVID happened. He's playing with one of the best players in the league in the regular season. Please just have this be the year. Please, I'm begging. He looked so good. He looked so good. Oh my God. The goal was definitely great by him. Obviously, it was a tap-in, but just the whole play by that second line leading up to it, with him included, was awesome. He had that one play where he went between the legs and tried to score backhand and almost went in. He genuinely looked like an NHL player for the first time in his career. That was cool. The one thing I'll say about Kakko is he's been a little underwhelming. I know it's 2 games. It's 2 games, but just considering how he looked in the preseason, I kind of expected him to start off really, really hot. Tonight, he was bad. I will say
Yeah.
that. I know it's 2 games, but tonight he was really, really bad. Just his decisions with the puck. Obviously, the easy one is the turnover at the blue line he had, but I just think he looked uncomfortable all night. And realistically, this is a new role for him because I think you're seeing when the first line is out there, they will actively pass it to Kako and have him be the guy that brings the puck up. So
Right.
that's not something he's really done up to this point, or at least with first line minutes. So if he doesn't look outstanding every single game, that's okay. But we'll just say it again, like we need those 2 guys to really break out this year. I'm not asking for 90 plus each. I'm just asking for them to give us what we expect with them in top 6 minutes. So obviously it's 2 games. They could very well both end up having 90 plus. That would be phenomenal. But I will say, I will give him a lot of credit because that was a game I've never ever seen him have in his career so far. I mean, he's had great plays before, but I think that was his most complete game he's played. Other than, I mean, obviously the playoff run a couple years ago, he was really, really good in that playoff run. But this is right up there with one of the best performances he's had in his career. And I think they did take an assist away from him for God knows what reason. But he did look really, really awesome. And I think that second line has shown you a lot to be happy about so far. I guess the other thing, too, is they've definitely not... They've looked much, much better 5-on-5, which is... Oh, my God. I've said it multiple times on here. We have been the bottom 10 in the league 5-on-5 for the past 2 years. So if they could just keep this up, they will be a very, very good team. It's that simple. And the power play hasn't been, terrific so far. I mean, now I think they've had power play goals both games. Was the Kreider one? Yeah. So
Tonight, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, obviously they scored on the power play both games, but it's just like the past couple years they would, for example, the past 2 games, I think they've gone like 1 for 3 or 1 for 4, or maybe 1 for 5 in the first game. I can't remember. You're just expecting that percentage to go up a little bit. They did look bad in the preseason. I don't think we weren't on to talk about that. The power play definitely looked really concerning in the preseason. I'm still, with all that being said, I know a lot of people like to overreact about the power play. They have times where they, go cold, but they will still absolutely be a top 5 power play in the league. So if you could just keep up the 5-on-5 play and with Lindgren in, if you could play like that defensively, they will be a very, very good team.
Very much so. One thing that I will give them credit for with the power play is it has looked shoot first. There were a lot of times last year where they would pass it around for 40 hours, and this can definitely go. I think this also would apply to a lot on the 5-on-5 side. They're actually shooting at the net, which is very cool to see.
Yeah.
I absolutely adored last year where there'd be these 40-minute chunks where there just was maybe 5 shots on net and 8,000 passes around the boards trying to be like, here we go. They were waiting last year. I said it a lot in the individual recap videos that I did. They were waiting for chances that weren't coming. They were hoping for that better universe that did not exist, and they would lose a lot of games because of it. They scored 5 goals in the first game, and they had 42 shots tonight. They're not afraid to just kind of chuck it at the net and hope that Kreider or Kako or Lafreniere, someone is going to be there, and they have definitely learned that, which is a nice thing to, again, go back to a little bit of structure, getting told, hey, you guys have some of the best skill players in the league and some of the most promising youngsters that have come into the league in the past few years. Maybe just kind of throw it towards that little net-shaped thing and see what happens. And for the most part, it's worked well. To talk about Laf and Kako, I think it's funny how they've totally switched places from preseason, because Lafreniere looked like a ghost in the preseason.
Yeah.
And Kako looked like he was going to be McDavid Jr., and now through 2 games, it's been inverse.
Yeah, it's definitely been the
Loft
opposite.
looked great in game one.
Yeah.
The fact that they took away his assist on the Panarin goal is insane.
Yeah,
And
I don't know why. I've watched it over quite a few times now. It doesn't make any sense.
even if you can argue that he
goes directly from his stick to Panarin's. I don't know. That is by definition an assist. So I don't know.
Even if you showed me a clip where like a player from Buffalo, I forgot who we played for a brief second there, touched the puck before that, he worked his ass off on that entry, and he just... I'm going to be old talking head about it. He deserves an assist for that play. He looked great and was the reason that goal came to be. And when he scored that first goal, I laughed my ass off and thought of you.
Yeah,
that's all I could do. I'm like, oh my god, it happened.
Yeah, and I mean, listen, like I've been trying so hard to reverse jinx Alexis Lafreniere for so long now. And by the way, it's not even just me that has been hard on him. I think I'm the president of the Laugh Hate Club at this point. And I will give him credit and eat crow as much as he makes me. I'm totally happy every time he scores a goal. But I just think it's so fitting, especially with the outrage of this fan base through the whole preseason about him specifically. There was nobody else that was scoring the first goal of the year. Nobody else. Even if he ends up having, a really bad year, by the grace of God, hopefully not. But it's just, regardless of what happens with him the rest of the year, there was absolutely nobody else on this team that was allowed to start the season off. It's so fitting.
It was in the script, and you can't deny that it was in the script. It was so beautiful.
Yeah, and I mean, like you said before, it's definitely pretty cool that they do feel different. They are very shoot first now. Listen, tonight they definitely just got goalied, and they had two goals called off by a hair offsides. So it is what it is.
Quite literally 3 feet, and a combination of Merzlikins and Martin not being the love child of Hasek and Waugh. They could have scored 9 goals tonight. They really could have.
Those games, and by the way, that's not the first time a game like this is going to happen. They will get goalied plenty this year, just like every season. But I'll keep saying this, it's just nice to have a coach that can, run a practice and get something out of it. And I know it's been 2 games. I will keep saying that. You can only really say so much if it's been 2 games, but it's just cool that, like I said, a structure was put into place, and the lines aren't being scrambled, because for the past 2 years, it was just a complete disaster, and you had the second coming of Christ in net, and you had a very good power play, and that's why you made it all the way to the conference finals, and that's why you were a top 3 team last year. That was it. They never had any type of structure. They never really played tough against anybody. Nothing like that. So even if it was just for the opener that we've seen it so far, that's so far more than we ever saw it under Gallant. It's that simple. So
the response of it's 2 games. We haven't had this. This is the first time in 2 full years of hockey that they've looked like a team, like a professional team that practices and has someone say, hey, fellas, what if we did this instead of that? And not just a bunch of beer leaguers on a Friday night that are like, hey, I watched a Pavel Datsyuk video on YouTube. Want to see what I can do?
Yeah, and it's also cool that, if Gallant was still the coach, that by midway through the second, Benino would have been on the first line. So it's cool that those things are not happening.
Benino would have been on the first line. Kaka would have been executed behind the stadium.
Yeah, we have seen Ryan Reeves on the first line of this team more than once, like a handful of times. So it's just cool that those things are not happening, and I'm confident they won't happen.
It's very enjoyable to see the insane knee-jerk reactions come from Twitter and not the bench. That's a really cool thing.
Yeah. It's, there's a lot of positives, a lot of negatives, to take from the first 2 games, but regardless, we said it the last time too, this team is going to be a top 3 team in the division. They're going to make the playoffs, barring a laundry list of injuries. That's the only way that would prevent that. They are a very, very talented team. And obviously they didn't quite have it tonight, but they also could have scored 9, like you said. So it is what it is. I mean, obviously we have the Coyotes up next. I don't want to be too confident about it. You definitely should win that game for sure. They're not as bad though. I will say that. Like, I'm not expecting to win 8-0. That would be awesome. I'm not saying they can't. I would very much enjoy that happening. But I think you've seen, especially in the game against the Devils that they played, the Coyotes do have some playmakers now. So, with that being said, you definitely have to be pretty tight defensively, because Logan Cooley was making no-look passes like 4 or 5 times in his NHL debut. So, not to mention Clayton Keller and guys like that they have over there. So, it's not going to necessarily be the easiest game. Listen, if we were playing the Sharks, then I would, if we even gave up a goal, I'd be concerned, because I don't think we've really said anything about the San Jose Sharks this offseason.
Oh God, we can.
I don't even know who they've played so far this year, but they're bad. They're really bad, and I don't want to get off topic too much. But I just want to ask you, is this Sharks defensive core the worst in the history of the sport? Is it the worst ever? Genuine question.
It's bad.
Yeah, so their best defenseman is Mario Ferraro, and it's not close.
It is
It's not close.
impressively bad.
It's Ferraro, Vlasic, and I don't even know anything about the rest of the guys. So
it's shockingly bad.
Yeah, David Quinn's gonna have fun with that.
Oh my God! I forgot that Quinn was there.
Yeah, just real quick. I don't want to sit here and talk about the Sharks for an hour, but why did they extend Hurdle? Why? It was like 7-8 years. Why? It doesn't make any sense. They're trying to rebuild. He's like 28. I don't understand. I really don't get it. It's like 7-8 years of a contract.
Great news for you, though, about those San Jose Sharks. They are somehow currently winning 1-0 over the Colorado Avalanche.
Oh, the Avalanche? What?
Avalanche.
Oh my goodness. Okay. Yeah, so they're winning the cup. Okay, it's the second period. That's definitely insane. Yeah, I mean, just to like I said, it's the Coyotes are definitely bad. We should win that game for sure. But like I said, if it was the Sharks, it's got to be like 12-0. But the Coyotes, you can't overlook them. They have some legit players over there. I don't want to get that twisted. Like, I'm not trying to sit here and say the Coyotes are making the playoffs or anything. But Clayton Keller is legitimately a elite player in this league for sure. And I've been very, very high on Logan Cooley. So they have guys over there that can make you pay for mistakes. That's just what we have to look out for, because it's not like they just don't have any playmakers over there. I think if you give them power plays, they can absolutely convert on them. It's just, it definitely just comes down to that, because we've seen this many, many times with this team where they do overlook opponents and they just don't show up to the rink. That's a team, like I said, I'm not expecting them to be anywhere near playoff contention, but they do have players that will make you pay for that. So you obviously just stay on top of that. It should be a pretty clean win, I'd assume. I'm just a little interested to see who actually gets a start in net. Obviously, Igor's played both games so far. Being that they have the day off and it's the home opener, I would assume it's going to be him. Yeah, and the other thing I will say is Laviolette has shown that he does like to ride out his starting goalie, especially when he has a good one. Yeah, especially when he has a good one. He's going to ride them out unless it's a back-to-back. So I do expect Igor to play in that game.
God, isn't it going to be fun to see Igor Shesterkin start actual games after 2 days of rest instead of being like, well, we're playing Boston, so,
Yeah.
who to start?
Yeah, and the one thing that I do want to say really quick, I'm just Jonathan Quick is going to get so much unwarranted
Oh my
hate,
god.
so much, because every single year the Rangers fans love to rag on the backup goalie. Always. That's been like that when Hank was here. It's always, always, always been like that. Um,
Also,
Listen,
I don't know if
if
you're aware
Quick
of
played in
this.
this game, he would have gotten torn apart. It would be a completely different narrative from the fan base if Quick would played in this game. That's all I'm gonna say. It would have been all his fault, and that's it. So,
I'm going to say, usually it's unwarranted when they tear apart the backup goaltender. However, I don't know if you're aware of what happened in the year of our Lord 2014, Evan. This Jonathan Quick fellow.
yeah, like I'm still not over it. So he definitely has no wiggle room with the fan base.
I
But all I'm gonna say is the Rangers fans love to blame the backup goalie when they're getting outshot by 20. So let's just like lay off him a little bit. I know he caused us so much pain. I know, but listen, just relax. Like I don't want to sit here and have to act like the backup goalie is the problem in losses that they play when the team just plays bad. So that's all I'm gonna say. Like, if the team plays bad, I don't care who's in net. Like I said, if oh my god, if Quick played in this game, nobody would be talking about anything else.
he would
Anything
be
else.
getting death threats already.
Yeah. So, oh my god. Yeah,
I
he definitely has to make up for it. And I mean, it kind of sucks for him, right? Because he grew up a Rangers fan, so it has to hurt at least a little bit to be hated so much by the team, by the fan base of the team that you grew up loving.
so much pure vitriol thrown in his direction for taking a breath. And like he clearly likes them. He grew up a
Yeah.
fan. His helmet screams that he respects the history that is the Rangers, and it's super cool.
Yeah.
His helmet looks awesome. I genuinely, I don't get too up for goalie helmets, but like, yeah, that's sick. I I imagine it has to be Igor for the home opener.
I wouldn't see why not. I think if, especially coming off a loss, I think he's got to be the one in net for
I
sure.
feel like if it was reversed and you lose game 1 to Buffalo, you win this game with a very good show. I could see a reality where maybe you then go to Quick, but when you have that game, it's not feel good. I didn't think Shesterkin I didn't think he was terrible. He made some really, really good saves. You can't just let him have that happen to him and then go home and say, yeah, you're not starting this game. You've got to make sure that he's feeling good after that game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I'm also going to agree with you on the fact you can't... Like, the Coyotes and the Blue Jackets are subpar to bad teams this year. But they are teams, unlike what they were last year, which was just a wet dream for Connor Bedard. These are actual hockey teams that would like to win games, you would imagine. Mm-hmm. The Sharks are not a team. The Sharks are an entity that exists out in San Jose.
It's just, listen, I don't even know why we're even talking about the Sharks. But I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, that is the only team that you genuinely can't make excuses for even giving up a goal against. That's the only one. Like, the Blue Jackets are not great. The Coyotes are not great. But if we just lost to the Sharks, it's a different story. The Blue Jackets have players. The Coyotes have players. The Sharks have Hurdle that they signed for no reason. That's it. So, I mean, that's the only team that I will genuinely overreact if they lose to, especially this early. But yeah, I mean, it is what it is. We've pretty much gotten everything out about the past 2 games. I guess, like I said, I would definitely like to win the home opener. There's no reason you shouldn't. And to be honest, there really wasn't any reason to not start, 3-0. Obviously, that's not possible now. But, I will rag on them a little bit. Like, this was a winnable game regardless. I know you got goal lead, but you also have to not, dig into the team a little bit when you can. The one thing I will say is I'm not the biggest fan of the penalties they're taking. I just think, I mean, obviously it didn't bite them in the first game, but I just think a lot of it is definitely lazy penalties.
Yeah.
It's just, being in bad position and stuff like that. Obviously, like I said, it didn't hurt them in the first game, but it's just, those are things that, and once again, I'm confident that we obviously have a coach that coaches that those things will be improved throughout the season. But that's really the only true negative that I have. It's just I feel like they're just caught in bad position and just reaching, and those are things that you learn not to do very, very early on. It's just things that can't happen. Obviously, it's been 2 games. That's the only thing that I will genuinely dig into them for.
I would agree the penalties have definitely been a problem. I will then flip it. The penalty kills looked unbelievable through 2 games. Have we discussed the penalty kill at all?
We have not. We have not. So, they've definitely been really good. And speaking of that, I just want to say something, especially in the first game. I thought Barclay Goodrow was really, really good on the penalty kill.
Yeah.
And I mean, we've said it multiple times. He is a scapegoat for a lot of fans, and I just don't understand it. I understand he makes a little more money than he would like, but so does half of this team. Listen, the Rangers are not going to win or lose the Stanley Cup based on what Barclay Goodrow does. It's not the case. So if all he has to do is be a good penalty killer, and that's it. He's a fourth line guy. That's it. The other thing I will say is Nick Bonino looked pretty good on the penalty kill. I'm just a little concerned. Obviously, it's awesome to see that many block shots, but it is concerning because we are in October. And Ryan Lindgren didn't play tonight because he took a puck to the hand. So it's a little bit concerning.
I am very happy that you all were willing to run through a wall game 1 for your new coach. However,
please
considered
get hurt. Yeah, and it genuinely felt like they were being coached by John Tortorella the first game. Like that was crazy. They were getting in front of everything. It was really scary, but it was awesome to watch. I mean, not even just that. I think just structurally on the penalty kill, they were good, and not that the penalty kill was really a problem. The past 2 years, I think they've shown bright spots on the penalty kill, but I think now they look really, really locked in on the penalty kill.
Yeah.
So that's cool. Hopefully that carries through. I think Laviolette, definitely that's one of his specialties for sure. I think especially that he has guys that he can trust in situations like that, on the penalty kill and being responsible. I do think they will be very good in that area the rest of the year. And the one thing I will say is in the Buffalo game, the penalty kill that Mika Zibanejad put on his back and it led to a goal to Kreider. That was fantastic, and I'll give him credit. Obviously, that was awesome. But the one thing I will say, like we've said multiple times since they've gotten eliminated, that it's just either. Listen, Mika Zibanejad is no less than a top 15 center in this league. With that being said, at times he shows that he's like top 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And if we could just get him to show that like damn near all the time, he is a serious problem to play against.
Oh my god.
And there's nothing in this game that warrants me saying this or anything like that, but specifically in the playoff series where he was a ghost and everything, it's just like it is frustrating to see him do things like that and then just have games where you don't even notice him on the ice. It's very, very frustrating. But I mean, this is a new year, so we'll see what happens. The other guy that we have torn into is Artemi Panarin, who literally looks like Connor McDavid with bald hair now.
Shit.
With a bald head.
He looks so good in game 1.
Oh my god, he was on another. I mean, even tonight he almost had like that stick spinorama goal.
Oh my god.
That was like, I'm like, oh my god, like just him being bald has unlocked like something else. Not that he hasn't shown crazy skill plays before, but like, wow.
What would he have done in 2019-20 if he was bald?
Oh my god, yeah, he probably would have broken like every record possible. Yeah, he's been awesome. I mean, like I said, those are the two guys that it's just so frustrating to see them do that. And then, obviously we have we've seen them do the opposite more than once. So there's a new season. Just hopefully they just keep carrying this through because both of them have looked really, really good so far.
I will say for both of them, they've looked good. They've looked ranging from unbelievably good in the case of Panarin to very solid. And Zibanejad usually can get it going after the first few games. He's usually not the earliest riser for the season. So I'm not concerned whatsoever. And he looked good in game 1. He had that unbelievable penalty kill that you already mentioned. Panarin is one of the best offensive playmakers in the sport. When you talk about Mika Zibanejad, he is, I don't think you could debate lower than the 15th best center. When he wants to, he is a game-destroying player. That you can put in his... When he's at his absolute best, you can put him in the same conversation as a guy like McKinnon. He is unreal. Full 200-foot game. He will blast shots by a goaltender. He can make those unreal plays like he did to Kreider, even as a playmaker, which is underrated for him. He is fantastic defensively, and he can be a physical force with his body. When he isn't, you get the playoff series where you're screaming at the television for him to do anything.
Yeah.
And then spending the entire offseason foaming at the mouth over the fact that he had more songs played at Lollapalooza than points scored against your worst rival.
Yeah. So we've done enough screaming about that. Like I said, the reason I'm bringing this up is just because they've both looked really, really good so far, and I'm just hoping that carries all the way through, and there aren't inconsistencies, especially because of how good the team as a whole has looked 5-on-5. Those two are the ones driving that, so as long as they're going, the rest of the team will follow. So those are obvious. 5-on-5 was basically our major concern going into the season, and I know it's been 2 games, but at least it's shown improvement, and it's shown to be much better than the past 2 seasons. So that's really it. To talk about Panarin a little bit, I believe we said this when Laviolette was hired and we came on and talked about it. I think for him it must have been very frustrating under Gallant because obviously, like you said, he is one of the best offensive players in the league. Without question, he's a top 5 winger in the league. If you want to hate on the Rangers and dispute that, that's fine. It's just not true. If you're going to dispute that, he's literally been top 5 in the league in points since 2016. So this is a very legit player, and the reason I'm saying that is because when you're in a playoff series, that is the first guy that teams are going to circle when talking about defending. So, under Gallant, when you're talking about a team that played with such little structure, it's probably very tough for him to overcome that without a structure because teams are just hounding him every time he gets the puck. So, we are obviously very, very far away from the playoffs at this point. But I still think that was just a kryptonite for him, because he is the number 1 priority for teams in a playoff series, and when your coach is just letting the entire team do whatever they want, it's very tough to overcome that, because you have 2 guys on him at all times, and they're not playing with any structure for him to really have instinct on where to pass the puck to. So it's just cool that, like I said, we have a coach that is installing a system and having a relationship with the players on the team that he coaches, and he's instilling this. And it's just, this is the one thing that I know I'm probably overreacting about, but like I said, we haven't seen this for 2 seasons. So nothing has, really driven my hate for Gallant more than the past 2 games, because it's just like, why was this not happening for 2 years? 2 years!
I want to imagine, and I know he probably doesn't because he's a professional hockey league coach. I want to hope that Peter Laviolette has looked at Twitter to see how Rangers fans are like, man, isn't it cool to have a system, and just thinks to himself, Jesus Christ, the bar was so fucking low.
Yeah, he's like, I'm just doing what I normally do. Did you guys not so practice? I'm doing the bare minimum, sir. Yeah, and I think The other thing I will say is, now, we've said this a few times, especially talking about Laviolette. He is definitely one of the more, hard-ass coaches, for sure. He's definitely not Tortorella, where he will scream in guys' faces. He's not that. But he will call them out. And I'm sure he had a lot to say after this game, where as opposed to, Gallant literally not said. By the way, the players have said themselves that Gallant did not talk to them before or in the middle of the games, maybe a little bit after, but there was literally no preparation or in-game adjustments coming from the head coach of the hockey team. So it's cool that we have that now. So you saw that in the even though it was preseason, he openly said when he thought they played like dog shit, and he will say that to them as well. But like I said, when you have talent on this team, they definitely have the pieces. They have the goddamn best goalie in the league. It's just cool that you have a coach that is going to speak to the players and run a practice and try to improve things and install a system. I'm excited for this season because he's coaching the team and he's not just letting them play for fun. It's awesome. It's really, really cool. We've probably said that like 8 or 9 times so far in this episode, but that is my main takeaway. That the head coach of the team is coaching the team that he is a head coach of. It's cool. I like it.
We've said it a lot. It bears repeating. They have been let to run amok for 2 years. It's just been backyard hockey for 164 games. It's just been, hey, you can do whatever. I don't really care. Feel free. Just really feel out this space. Again, it's 2 games. The blender didn't come out tonight. You mentioned it. We would have seen line changes with Gallant already.
Yeah, so quickly into the game. That would have happened. And, I mean, with all that being said, they could have come back tonight if they didn't get goalie. There was 3 or 4 goals to be had in the third period. Easily. So I'm not sitting here and complaining about the team after this game. They definitely played well. They showed up to play at least. It was definitely a weird game. Like I said, it's strange to have, 2 goals waved off in the same period. It's also tough to get that momentum back on the road. It really is. Mm-hmm. It's when you're playing on the road and you have 2, by the way, beautiful goals get called off. Yep. That's worth mentioning as well. When you have both of those wiped away, it does bring your energy down quite a bit. And when you're on the road, it's tough to get that back. That's not necessarily an excuse or anything, but considering it's game 2, I think that is kind of valid to say. Mm-hmm. Just because obviously you're not pulling energy from the crowd. You just had all your, hype and energy drained from you. And with all of that happening, they still could have won the game. So that's cool. By the third Columbus goal, if Gallant was the coach, it would have been a complete disaster. And the other thing that I will say, we've joked about it many, many times, but with Gallant, there was always in every single game a period. It could have been any period, first, second, third. There was always a period that was a nightmare, a complete disaster. No matter what, they could have, even in the games they won 5-2. There was always a game or a period within the game that they looked just completely out of sorts, and that hasn't happened yet. I mean, obviously they didn't play great tonight, but like I said, it does feel different because for the past 2 years there was always a period where they would get outshot by 17. So that hasn't happened yet, and I'm sure. Listen, they're gonna have bad periods this season. But it's just cool that it doesn't seem like that's going to be a very consistent thing. Mm-hmm. So,
I will say, because you mentioned the Gallant actually talks to players, which, noteworthy that he does, or not Gallant. Jesus Christ. Laviolette,
yeah.
It's late. Anyway, he actually talks to them. They came into the third period down 4-1. They get the first goal of the period. They outshoot Columbus 17-2 in the third period. Under normal circumstances, had Spencer Martin not just played the period of his career,
yeah,
they very easily could have come back in that game.
Yeah. And by the way, do we know why he came into the game? Was that said?
Not offhand. I'll check.
Because that was definitely a little strange. I don't know what happened to Elvis, but I mean, Elvis played great too, so I guess it didn't really matter. I just thought that was weird because definitely wasn't an injury or anything, or at least not that I saw. But yeah, that was strange. I mean, he basically came in and just played the same way that Elvis was playing. But yeah, like you said, they definitely could have won that game for sure. So this is not the sky is falling. I'm seeing a lot of stuff on Twitter. It's definitely crazy to see this stuff considering it's their first loss of the season. But yeah, it wasn't as bad of a game. It felt in the moment it felt very not fun, and I had a lot of negative thoughts, rolling through my head. But after the third period of watching them just dominate them for the third, I'm like, all right, like there was just nothing getting past the goalies tonight. Like it just is what it is. Just move on, and that's about it.
It's a totally irrelevant thing to harp on, but I will take it back to that. I guess it's not irrelevant. To go back, new updated record with Ryan Lindgren, 149, 82, 27, without 47, 52, 17.
Yeah, so yeah, he definitely makes a difference.
Bonkers.
Yeah, he's definitely a huge difference maker. So
I can't find anything for why Merzlikins was gone. Under normal circumstances, Gallant or not? Oh my God, I'm so ingrained to say him.
We've said his name a lot. It's going to take some getting used to.
Laviolette, under everything you understand with the sport of hockey, he very easily could have coached a comeback in that third period.
Yeah, definitely.
That deserves being noted because on the road against a team that was kicking you into the dirt, you came out in a third period. You allowed 2 shots. You outshoot them 17-2. That is unreal. And on the road, with a new defensive structure.
The one thing I will say about that, too, is, when we're talking about just from a coaching perspective, Gallant would have made that almost impossible to happen because the lines would have just been such a irrational combination by the time we got to the third period that it's like the players wouldn't have even felt comfortable enough to gel and outshoot a team 17-2. So it's just, I mean, like we said before, he definitely shortened the bench a little bit, which is fine, but it's not like he was putting VZ on the first line and bumping Kreider down to the fourth like Gallant would do for no reason and kill a chance of a comeback. So like you said, they could have come back in the game, and it's just cool that it was possible because he didn't shake everything up. So the players actually knew who they were playing with, and they were just able to at least try to mount a comeback. That, because like I said, Gallant would have just killed the chances of that, which he's done many, many times.
Oh, so often.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good from this. Even in the loss, there's still a lot of things that I take that are positive, which usually losses last year were just nothing but negative, which is a step in the right direction. Again, I can't get over it. They actually played in this game. Like they clearly cared. They weren't just out there to be out there. And when they were down and getting kicked into the dirt 4-1, they still came out and tried. They phoned in. This game last year, they're phoning in the third period. They're getting maybe 10 shots at most. Maybe they outshoot them. But it's not a 17-2 period last year.
Yeah.
And it's just refreshing.
I mean, like we said before, this is basically just polar opposites of games, and not necessarily because, I mean, like I said, they definitely, played very well tonight to a certain extent. But like you were just mentioning, it's last year the losses were always just brutal, and this is something I've said many times. Like in the past 2 years, the Rangers were either firing on all cylinders or the sky was falling. They never had, it was either their complete A game or they were awful. So obviously there's a very small sample size, but obviously they had a great game 1, and they lost tonight, but they didn't look like they didn't look like an unserious team. Whereas the past 2 years, it's either they dominated a team or they got dominated the whole game. So it's just, I mean, like I said, it's a small sample size, but these are just little things that we've been asking for that have at least shown themselves. I know it's early, but it's just, I mean, like I said, last year after every loss, it's like, oh my god, like what are we gonna do? The sky is falling. Like everything just seemed they just seemed so out of sync every time they lost the game. Tonight they showed up to the rink and played hockey and they lost, but it wasn't a complete joke to watch. So,
and now you do get a nice little bit of time. You have the Coyotes and Nashville both at home coming up this week, which are two very winnable games, assuming UC Saros doesn't turn into God, which I mean it's distinctly possible. He's kind of done that before.
Yeah.
But you can very easily see a 3-1 start from that. And going back home is going to be incredibly refreshing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, these are, like you said, it's definitely two winnable games. And the one thing I will say about the Preds and Saros is he's obviously a very good goalie, and I don't know what the Preds schedule looks like, so we're just going to go into it assuming that he's going to, start in the game. But when we're talking about things like that, it's a matter of if this team can keep it up 5-on-5, or at least just not be terrible 5-on-5 like they have been the past 2 years. If they could keep this rolling, it adds another weapon to be able to beat elite goalies like that, because I attended a game, what was it, last year or the year before, where they did get just, clapped by Saros, and it's because the only scoring chances they had were on the power play. So being that you could actually attack an elite goalie for 60 minutes is very refreshing. So there are, two winnable games coming up. Yeah, I mean, like I said, I'm not going to sit here and act like the season's over after tonight, because it's definitely not. But it's just my main takeaways are, it's cool that they lost the game without looking like you have to tear it down, and it's cool that we have a coach that is contributing to the team and earning a paycheck and doing everything that a coach is supposed to, and having an impact on the team. I don't know if you want me to keep going. It's just everything that a coach is supposed to do, he's done so far, which is cool because we haven't had that for 2 years. So
I am absolutely elated that this professional hockey team is being run like a professional hockey team.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess the one thing that I think we said it the last time, just looking at the schedule, but we don't play a meaningful game for like a month and a half. So, I mean, obviously these games matter. You want to win them, but I'm talking about like divisional games and stuff. I don't know what's going on with the schedule. We play,
Neither
obviously,
does the NHL, funny enough.
like Buffalo, Columbus, obviously that's divisional, but it's not a rivalry or anything. It's not. What I'm trying to get at is like we don't have a measuring stick game for quite some time. So obviously you want to win these, but we don't play the Devils till next month. We don't play the Canes till next month, I don't think. So it's going to take a while before we, are kind of nervous for a game, and we're expecting to, see where this team truly is. So we're just going to hope, obviously, they, win a lot of these games. A lot of them are very winnable. Obviously, Coyotes, Predators, Seattle, who's a good team. The Flames, Oilers, who, by the way, I just want to say, they are playing a man short. They're playing a man short, and the season just started. Like, they don't have money, so they have to play a man short.
Is that what it is?
Going on? Yes!
No!
They don't have money, so they don't know what they're going to do.
No shot!
Yeah. Opening night of the season, they had to play a man short because they don't have money. So, this is like, what is happening?
Well, thankfully for them, they're paying Jack Campbell like $5.5 million per year.
Yeah, about that. Oh man, he was oh boy.
He certainly played a game of hockey in their opener.
Yeah, that was brutal.
That was one of the games of all time.
Yeah, this month we play a lot of the West Coast. It's West Coast the rest of the year. So Coyotes, Predators, Kraken, Flames, Oilers, Canucks, Jets. And then after that, I think is when we actually have meaning. Yeah, so then we have the Canes and then the Devils, Penguins, Flyers, Bruins next month. So those are it's going to take a little bit before, we wake up for a game day and we're like nervous and we kind of have to see where this team is and where they stack up to the teams we're, battling with.
Mm.
So that's the only negative because I would kind of like to see that early on. But I guess it also is, it could be a good thing because they have a chance to kind of get their legs under them and feel confident going into the games against, Carolina and the Devils and stuff. Because there is a chance, like, if they did play the Devils opening night or something, that's where they could have struggled, and then it could have just snowballed from there because they might have just destroyed their confidence or what have you. At least they have a chance to get their legs under them and have a full month of learning the system before they play these teams that they're going to have to beat this year. So that's cool. It's just a little disappointing that we have to wait a little bit to see them and like be real amped up for a game. But I'm still excited. I mean, like you said, they have all the opportunity in the world to start 3-1. So we'll see. It would have been nice, like a really hot start, but it is what it is. These games won't matter to us after the month is over.
Yeah.
So the first, I've never thought about the first 2 games of the season for more than like 3 days after. So this is obviously we've touched base on everything. I'm not going to sit here and overreact or over anything right now like a lot of our fans are. So
yeah, it's still incredibly early. I'm not going to lose my mind and say to tear it down until after Monday night. So
yeah. So we'll see what happens then. Like I said, we'll just kind of feel this team out for a month until we play games that are real. They're gonna have a lot behind them. So obviously, Carolina and the Devils are the 2 teams that everybody's expecting us to be in contention with this year. So just kind of get your shit together for the month, and then everything starts up after that. So
yeah, I think we've said everything we need to say. We will reconvene next week at some point to discuss probably the Coyotes, Predators, and possibly Seattle game, depending on when that plays out.
yeah.
But I think for tonight we are good. So thank you all so very much for coming to the 14th episode of the Rangers Game Plan podcast. Until we meet again, thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a fantastic day, and go Rangers.
Yep. Thanks, everyone. Go Rangers.